Hi. Yes, by popular demand, the robot. Seems like if I don't do the robot, people go, how come you didn't do the robot? How come you didn't do the robot? Well, I don't know. It's not something I think of every 2 seconds, but... How's it going, everybody? A little earlier tonight. Wow, oogla boogla. My bot already said oogla boogla. Oh, Reese Marina was Captain Moo before, I guess. Okay. I don't think I'll ever remember that, but... Yeah. So, by the way, I'm trying to bury the hatchet with Miss Effing Wonderful Katie, right? So, we'll see how that goes. But apparently, she took down the video. I asked her, and she took down the video of her, you know, the stuff she said about my wife. Okay. So I thought that was cool. I'd rather not be arguing with anybody. I mean, it's been a lot better recently anyways, but it's hard to, I mean, when you have all these videos out there that are still, you know, slamming you into the pavement on a page, it's a little, feels bad, but, you know, apparently she removed some of those, so. Yeah. No, she's not getting sued, Jeff. Yeah. See, Jeff's one of the people who bought into that. She's getting a mess. She got 2 letters that said cease and desist. Those are just warnings, basically, saying, hey, take these down. Okay? And then if you don't take them down, they might go further with further action. But most of the time, those kinds of things are just, you know, they put them out there to scare you into doing something. Okay? So she's not being sued. All right, and don't spread that around because it makes it seem like it's a bigger deal. Because it definitely, there's no suing being done. Yeah, it's not a lawsuit though. You guys, do you get it still, or are you guys still thinking there's a lawsuit there? It isn't. It's just said, hey, take down this video. Also, what you said wasn't true. Blah 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 blah. Okay, that's it. There's nothing else in there that said anything about a lawsuit. All right, so quit doing, you know, you're spreading this false story. It doesn't exist. Yes, she did get letters, but they were just cease and desist letters, okay? Right, that's exactly what, it's a warning. That's what I just said a minute ago. All right, so, you know, she's not going to lose her house or anything like that. It's just a letter because... you know, obviously the stuff that was said about that individual, she doesn't like that was said. And some of the stuff that was said was actually inaccurate because in what Miss Wonderful had put in there was that Julie's the one that did the photograph. Like she's actually the one that filmed Libby. That's how it was worded in her original video. And that's not accurate, okay? Her sister took the photograph, okay? And that there is a difference there, right? So that's the part that's not true. I mean, you could take those down. But I did a show when I went over the stuff that she's done to me. And, you know, it's all accurate. I have the screenshots. There isn't, you know, you can't dispute it, all right? So I'm just going over this right now because I'm waiting for people to come in. Because, man, these 2 cases, I was just randomly looking up old unsolved cases, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, these 2 are just horrific crap. Unbelievable. All right. So, are you guys ready to get started on this, or what? I mean, it's... You know, make sure you ate food a while ago. I'll wait for all the hellos to stop. Maybe read the description, Karen. You ever thought of doing that? Hey, thanks, Billy Boy Blue. 3 blind mice. Where the F would it go went? Ooh! Ha ha! Bam!
Three blind mice. Where the F asterisk K were they going? Oh.
Where are they going? Oh! Yeah. Okay, great. Well, read the description before, then you don't have to ask the question. All right? Makes sense, right? Hey, look at that. It's a twin thing. All right. I'm going to switch screens now. Although you guys get to see Blue. He is right there right now. As soon as I switch screens, he'll go, okay, am I done yet? Can I go take my break? You know, and then he goes, sits over, smokes a cigarette in the corner, and eats dog food. Okay, and then he reads the script, and he comes back later, and his script's pretty simple. It's just sit down. All right. All right, so the first case here is the Lady of the Dunes. All right, so don't go, oh, I know this one, I know this one. I don't care if you know this one. So don't go through and tell everybody how you know everything about it and all that kind of stuff. Just let's just do the story the way it is, okay? That's one of the things I get really tired of is when you put together all this time putting it together, then you got some jackass in the chat that has to say, oh, I know this one. Oh, yeah. Wow, yeah. Look at this part. It has this one. Blah, 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 blah. And then everybody knows the story before you even get to it, all right? It's amazing. Yes, like I said, Blue's script is very simple. All right. So the first one is Lady of the Dunes. Lady of the Dunes. Okay, now listen to this. So this is probably the first little blurb in a newspaper. I went and found all this stuff. All right, so this is in Massachusetts, Provincetown. Local police and authorities from Cape Cod National Seashore are investigating the homicide of a woman whose dismembered body was discovered in sand dunes about 1 mile east of Race Point. Police are sifting through records in an effort to identify the victim, estimated to be between 30 and 40 years old. Officials said she died from some 10 days ago from a blow to the head. Both of her hands were severed from her body. The body was found by a young woman walking her dog in the area. And the girl's like 14 years old, something like that, 13 or 14. All right. And so here is a picture, just to sort of, I think this is an actual, I don't know if this is the actual skull or a replica of it, but look at that, just absolutely caved in side of the head. I mean, just smashed in the side of the head with something. Okay, it's unbelievable. A second, let me try to open up this PDF file here. That's later in December 1974, so a good 5 months later. You actually have a little bit of information, even the map location here. I think I have it really narrowed down because it was 1.2 miles of a lookout tower, and I have that mapped out, and it almost looks just like how they have the cross there. On a hot afternoon last July, a 13-year-old Provincetown girl wandered away from a friend's cottage in the Cape Cod National Seashore looking for her dog. She walked about 100 yards into the dunes, where she heard the dog, a beagle, barking 50 yards farther on. In a clump of scrub pine, she saw him sniffing at what looked like a naked woman sunbathing. But the woman wasn't sunbathing. She was dead. The little girl looked again to be sure her eyes weren't deceiving her. Then she turned and ran. So we're going over the newspaper clippings from all those years ago. 1974 in this case. 4 hours later, police removed the badly decomposed body of a woman about 30 with a fist-sized hole in the left temple. Both hands had been hacked off at the wrist. Such was the discovery of one of the most bizarre murder mysteries to hit Cape Cod in recent memory. A mystery that is not much closer to solution now than it was 5 months ago. Little did they know, in 2019 it's still not solved. To this day, no one has been able to identify the woman found on the beach that day in July. Despite an intense investigation, police can only guess who murdered her or why. They have found no weapon, no motive, and few clues. After 6 months, the body in the dunes remains a puzzle. Since July 26, as many as 30 police detectives have combed the dunes of Provincetown to no avail, and while some new clue may yet identify the woman, police admit that for the moment they are stumped. We're still working on it, Provincetown Police Chief James Meads said last week. We're hoping that we can find out who she is, then maybe that will lead to whoever killed her. See, the thing is about these missing people that were murdered, you don't even have a place to start. I mean, if you can identify them, then you can go, okay, who are some of their associates? Maybe kind of come up with something. But you don't even know who they are yet. So I actually called Colleen Fitzpatrick, or not called her, I sent her an email, and then I called the, let's see, what do they call it? It's actually the, I have it written down right here. The district attorney, but the Cape in the Islands district attorney, right? And I left her a message. I said, hey, have you guys thought of, because I think they have DNA. They've actually exhumed the body 3 different times. And, as DNA progressed, and I think the last time was 2013, and maybe that sample would have enough for the DNA Doe Project to identify her. But I think that would then be in that other case. Well, actually, this is a perfect case for a DNA Doe Project. And then what the police do with that information is up to them. All right. We're still looking at it. Let's see. So late in the afternoon on July 26, Park Ranger James Hankins returned to the dunes with the young girl's mother. A grim sight awaited him. So I think I have a part 2 here for that. Yeah. In a slight depression in the sand, the dead woman lay face down on a green beach towel, naked except for a blood-soaked bandana. Her arms, severed at the wrist, were at her sides. So kind of picture it. As a matter of fact, there is a picture here. Just a second. An actual crime scene photograph that I'm sure, it's you can see her legs, but it's hard to make out what's going on here other than that. But that's her calves, and then her heels, and then the bottom of her feet. So this is kind of what she looked like laying down like that, all right? So her reddish hair pulled back in a ponytail and bound with a gold-flecked elastic. See, isn't this amazing, the detail that they have back then? Now they really tried to keep everything under wraps, right? You don't get to hear this kind of information. So picture it again. Her reddish hair pulled back in a ponytail and bound with a gold-flecked elastic matted around her shoulders. Her dungarees were neatly folded beneath her hand. So it's weird, like she was wearing pants, right? I think that's what dungarees are. Am I wrong on that? But whoever it was, I mean, her pants are folded up neatly, and they're underneath her Well, when they said hand, how is that possible? Beneath her, I think they meant head. They wrote hand, but I read somewhere else it was head. Okay, so right here where it says folded beneath her hand, well, she doesn't have hands. Okay, so the thing is what they're saying, what they meant to write here is head, H-E-A-D. And part of the towel had been folded back to cover her face. So that's crazy, right? This one seems a bit personal, like they knew the person a little bit. Okay, dungarees or jeans. Okay, all right, okay. Thanks, everybody. But pants, right? So jeans, pants, you know, something you wear underneath there. A medical examiner later determined that she had been dead for at least a week. It was ghastly, Hankins said. It was as if she had been lying there alone or on a blanket with someone, and someone came up and clubbed her. Right? But I mean, how come her jeans were off? Okay. Alone on the blanket with someone, and so this is what, it's either one of these things they were saying. It was as if she had been lying there alone or on a blanket with someone, and someone came up and clubbed her. There was no sign of a struggle. Even the sand hadn't been disturbed. The next day, police from several surrounding towns searched the dunes for some clue to the woman's identity. They found absolutely nothing. All right. The medical examiner and pathologist inspected the body for identifying marks, internal injuries, or traces of foreign substances. There were none. A Park Service bloodhound and his handler prowled the dunes for 2 days. They found nothing. The state police laboratory examined the woman's clothes for fingerprints, laundry marks, or identifying labels. There were none. Several early clues provide fruitless. 2 sets of footprints were found leading towards the body, but they disappeared in the sand a few yards away. So there was a couple sets of footprints walking away, leading, let's see, it said, towards the body. So they're leading towards the body, but then they disappear. And wouldn't the girl that showed up looking for a dog have created some footprints, or was she far enough away where she didn't approach the scene? Nearby, but in the opposite direction, someone had traced a large SOS in the sand. There was no indication it had been the victim. Right. And it's like, why would you type an SOS in? You're right there. It's not like you're in the middle of the ocean somewhere. You know, there's houses around. Not a ton, but only 50 feet from the body, a set of tire tracks led towards the dunes. They could have been connected, or they could not have been connected. How do you know? Said Meads. The following week, 6 state and 2 Provincetown police continued their search for leads. They canvassed local motels and rooming houses to see if anyone had disappeared unexpectedly. They checked the woman's description against a computer list of... They had computer list? Huh. 1974? That's kind of weird. I mean, back then they were just using the damn those cards and shit. Thousands of missing. They compared it against thousands of missing persons and issued a nationwide police bulletin seeking identification of an unknown white female, 25 to 35, 5'6" to 5'8" inches, 140 to 150 pounds. They obtained a list of every vehicle licensed to drive the dunes during the first 3 weeks of July and asked local police to report on the owners of their family. And so eventually, so she was found in July, and on October 19th, she was buried in an unmarked plot in St. Peter's Cemetery. And it looks like this. unidentified female body found, found Race Point Dunes. So this is the Lady of the Dunes right here. I mean, how sad is that, right? I mean, just somebody buried, even a nice headstone, but it has nothing, they don't even know who it is. And they've actually dug her up a few different times and have and collected DNA at different times where there was advancements in DNA. Right. Okay, this is one part that's interesting here. The one remaining clue to the victim's identity is her teeth, which contain several gold inlays and other dental work valued at more than $5,000. State police have mailed her dental chart to 5,000 Massachusetts dentists, dental societies in 49 states, the FBI, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and Interpol. And I think actually some of her teeth were pulled out too. So the killer cut out her hands and some teeth. I know it wasn't said here, but I've read that in other places. It's certainly unusual that no one misses her. She must have a husband or boyfriend or parents or someone. She had been pretty well taken care of. We know that. You know, it's weird, too, because remember the Lyle Stevick case? I didn't realize they released such graphic pictures like that. I mean, are those real photographs of Lyle Stevick, like, or he's hanging, and you just see look right at his face? Well, in that case, his family didn't ever report him missing. They just thought he left at his own free will. You know, but isn't that weird? I mean, if I had a family member and I couldn't get a hold of somebody for years, I'd probably call the police at some point. Yeah, right. All right, so let me go to, so those were 1974, and in 1993, let's see, Woman of the Dunes murder case resurrected. So this is 1993, about 19 years later. Under an anonymous tombstone near a tool shed in St. Peter's Cemetery lies the Woman of the Dunes. Unidentified female body reads the inscription. Yeah, we just read that. Dumped in the unearthly dunes, with her head partially severed and her hands cut off, the dead woman is at the center of a murder mystery that has long intrigued this town at the tip of Cape Cod. The former police chief kept her skull in his office as an incentive to solve the crime. There's something very lonely about a grave at the end of America. There's nothing. Very sad. There's something very sad about it, said Henry J. Scammell, a writer who has taken an interest in the case. There is a lot of romance that attaches to it. It's a very elusive case, and yet I don't think I'd use the word romance in this, you know. That's a writer getting a little too full of himself there. And yet, one that should be within grasp. Now interest in the story has been resurrected by the Maryland murder conviction last month of a man from neighboring Wellfleet. The FBI chief forensic pathologist has become involved, and the Woman of the Dunes may be exhumed as early as this summer. Haddon Clark pleaded guilty to fatally suffocating Laura Haddling, 23, of Bethesda, Maryland, while she slept last fall and burying her body. Provincetown police detectives Warren Tobias would not say whether Clark is now a suspect in the murder of the Woman of the Dunes, but he said the 40-year-old drifter lived in Wellfleet at the time the body was discovered. The woman of the dunes was found 19 years ago this month, fully dressed but partially decomposed. Her internal organs were relatively well preserved. Okay, so then we skip ahead to 2000. All right, so they have done composite sketches, and I think this is her skull here. I mean, it's just absolutely bashed in. Almost nothing left of the left side of her skull there. Yes. And by the way, I apologize for the last couple nights having to delete shows. But, one show I was reading the manifesto of the psycho, and the thing is he talked about things that are legitimate topics. However, his conclusion was barbaric. It's like a freaking monster, right? So I thought the way it was so well written and thought out that it could really, if you read it, it might actually sell the ideas to somebody. Okay, I didn't want that. And then last night we went off onto a whole different, I did true crime for about an hour, and then we switched over to started doing politics. Not really, it wasn't even really politics, though, to be honest with you. It was just talking about some topics, and it sort of went off the rails. And then, not by me, however. It was people chatting, and you can twist anything into anything. And I don't trust YouTube at all. I think YouTube is absolutely doesn't give two shits about freedom of speech or literally just talking about something. They have like an army of people that review and make decisions on their own whim. Okay, so there you go. So I removed that one too, just for safety reasons, even though there was literally nothing in there that was, controversial even. It was just, it didn't seem like it anyways. It was just a conversation. So here we go. Now, police hope second exhumation will identify Lady of the Dunes. So that was in 2000, right? Let's see if they have any other information in here. Let's see. The woman's body was found on a hot July day by a 13-year-old girl walking her dog. Pathologists thought the victim had been dead for a few days, blaming heat and dune flies for the poor condition of the corpse. Her Wrangler jeans were left folded beside her body. See, do you think the killer... Because I've actually read, too, where they think she was sexually assaulted. So, I don't know. I mean, it almost feels like the killer folded them up. Right? I mean, how are they so well placed after being bludgeoned to death? Yeah, so it doesn't make sense to me. Investigators had few clues. There was no sign of a struggle, leading police to believe that the woman knew her attacker and that she may even be killed somewhere else. Police believe the mutilation was more crafty than perverse. The victim must have had a criminal record, they reasoned, and her killer must have feared that the fingerprints would pave an easy path to pursue. Provincetown police, who have, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, if you're following true crime, I think everybody knows that if somebody cuts off the hands of somebody, it's usually, nowadays they do it maybe to hide DNA, because if you got scratched or something like that. But back then, DNA wasn't even thought of by these people, so they would have done it to hide the fingerprints. And that's kind of strange, because that means that this person must have known that they had fingerprints in the system somewhere. You'd think, right? Because they wouldn't be thinking, oh, they've got my DNA under her fingerprints, or under her fingernails, because at that time, nobody was concerned with DNA at all. Okay, so this person, the person who killed her, must have known, or was just assuming, but it seems more likely you would go to that extreme if you knew that their fingerprints were in the system. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, Blue's just mowing down over there. Now this is good profile information over here. Provincetown police, who have declined to discuss the case, did much of the early legwork. I don't believe she was a poor innocent, Detective Warren Tobias told the Globe several years after the killings. James J. Meads, the police chief, who retired in 1992, was described back then as a man who pursued this case like a bulldog with lockjaw, like a pit bull. See? A few years after the murder, Tobias and Meads began to suspect the victim was Rory Jean Kessinger. It turned out it wasn't him. And I mean, it's just such a crazy case that, I mean, how come nobody knows who this is? She had extensive dental work that at that time cost $5,000, which would be massive. That's about like 20 today. So you'd think somebody out there, I mean, if you just did a mass sort of thing out in the public where you put out her face and discuss that, you'd think somebody would say, well, gosh, I mean, I haven't seen my daughter in a while. We spent 20 on her teeth. But nothing. I mean, I find stuff like this really bothersome. Like in the Long Island serial killer, again, with the mom and the baby. There's a mom and a child in the Long Island serial killer, and there's even earrings and jewelry that they both share together, and there isn't anybody out there at all that remembers that, oh, wow, my friend or my sister or my daughter has been missing, and she had a kid. Right? It's unbelievable. I mean, hey, everybody, have a little bit more contact with family members. Just a little bit more. There's more about the dental records. Police, however, were unable to get confirmation after sending photographs of the bust nationwide. So they put out this. There was an actual clay bust made. Nor could they figure out where to start checking dental records for a victim who had an estimated $7,000 in crown work. Eventually, the state police cold case unit was invited to assist. About 2 years ago, Sergeants Nagel and Paul White located Kessinger's mother in a western state. They declined to be more specific and persuaded her to proffer a saliva. That didn't turn out to be anything. Well, they were unable to extract DNA from the skull. Really? I guarantee if they could do it now, you just take one of the molars and get deep in there. Yeah. All right. So what else we got on this one? I think this is a rendition of what she looked like as well. Here, the red hair, but I mean that looks a lot different than Here's the bust right here. So there's this version, like that's the kind of hair she had, and then there's this drawing. I mean, that drawing and this drawing look absolutely nothing alike. This isn't a drawing, but they look nothing alike. Okay, absolutely nothing alike. Now, one thing that was interesting was I mean, I actually don't find it that interesting, but it was interesting that people were talking about it. But during the shooting of the film Jaws in 1974, in June, in that area, there was actually one of the extras had the jeans on and the blue bandana on her head. So one of the, I think, Steven Spielberg's grandchild or something is out there saying, "Oh, I think that's her. I think that's her right there." Well, I mean, it's possible, sure, right? Like, yep, that's possible. Just like it, you know, it could be aliens as well. We just don't know. Yeah. Who cares? Oh, yeah, opening scene, everybody. Hey, that makes a difference. Oh, boy. Anyways, yeah, so there she is with the blue bandana right there, right? And apparently I've seen the wider shot, she has jeans on. So that's the only correlation, is that it was around that time, and somehow, miraculously, she happened to be filmed on the camera. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sound like date rape to me. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be cutting people's hands off and pulling teeth out of her mouth on a date rape scenario. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's something else going on here. Yeah. Yes, that's the thing, is it feels like that they must have known, oh wow, they'll just fingerprint her, and then they know that there's a close relationship between me and her. I don't understand the teeth angle, though. That part doesn't make a lot of sense. So, basically, that's it, but let me show you. I have it all mapped out, too. I guess I didn't do that part. So look how... This is about as far away as you can get from my house, living in the United States. I mean, literally, like, I live over here, right, in Oregon. And, I mean, this is, like, absolutely the farthest point. Well, maybe, let's see, hold on a second. It's hard to make it out. Well, I guess you could say right there, up in Maine to the right. But it's right there, anyways. Yes, you're going to need a bigger boat. That's my favorite line. You're going to need a bigger boat. I like the part about... Wow, look at it. It's 20 foot.
You're gonna
25 and 3 tons of
101 rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing.
Yeah, thank you. Man, I appreciate the contribution. It helps the channel keep on ticking. You know, it takes a lot of time to get all this information, put it together. I checked on newspaper.com and found a whole bunch, like the articles from back then. All right, so if you identify the girl, you're going to identify the killer based on what the killer did to the girl. Wow, that's 20 foot long. 25 and 3 tons of them. Like a doll. I made a Jodi Arias video using that line. Those eyes are like doll's eyes. They roll back. That's right, that's a good line. Yep, so there it is, way out here on, I guess, Provincetown, and right in this little area right here, it was 1.2 miles from Old Coast Guard Station. So I went 1.2 miles, and it's just right in this area, probably not on this road, but, you know, up here, so just right in this area is where she was found. You kind of wonder, was she moved there and placed there? Or was that where she just happened to be? I mean, this is just so... You have to make an effort to get there, right? Yeah, and this right here, this spot here matches really well with, I think it was that first article? No, the second one, this one. Is it that one, or let me see, hold on a second. No, that was the 2000 one. This one right here. Yeah, see, if you look at the way this looks, if you look at it where you make everything a perfect triangle and go straight down from the bottom of the point, straight up and slightly to the right. So, I think right here, you're kind of looking at that. Right there, straight up, and just to the right. So that's almost exactly where they have it, just on that little map that they're using. So, that case is crazy, right? But the next one is even crazier. It's just really disturbing, the whole thing. All right, so I'm going to be switching to that one right now. Well, actually, after I have a sip of Gatorade, all right? I'm just reading some comments really quick. Yeah, maybe she's alien too. Who knows, Mary? It's hard to know. Maybe she's from Timbuktu. Hell, maybe she's even from Europe and came over on a dinghy. I mean, we just don't know at this point. Yep. That's what they should put on it. Gatorade. I hope Gatorade's not bad for you, the low sugar version. Because I drink a lot of it. Like almost too much of it. Yeah. Could just be about anything. She looks like she could have had a Ted Bundy victim. Yeah. I mean, it was around that time frame, but... Yeah, the one that I drink is only, I think it's got 30 calories in the entire bottle of it. It's the one that says low sugar Gatorade. Yeah? Yeah. Minus the shipping. I like the big 32-ounce bottles that they have, though. Yeah, I get the grape one. The grape one tastes like grape bubble yum, so how can you not like that? You know what? One thing that's sort of interesting about these two cases is they're only 300 miles apart, but I think the MO in them seems a little different. So, you know what? Do they still make bubble yum, by the way? I'd love to just have some grape bubble yum. I mean, I get my mouth waters just trying to remember that. Remember, you used to be able to sell a piece of that crap for about $1. I haven't seen it for a long time. All right, so here we go. Look at this crazy version right now. Dismembered parts of body, unborn fetus found near I-80. It's 9 months old, so you could call it a baby at that point, right? 3 suitcases containing the dismembered parts of a woman's body and unborn fetus were thrown from an overpass onto Interstate 80 Monday and found by a passing motorist, authorities said. State police said pathologists and other officials of the Carbon County Coroner's Office were to examine the unidentified bodies today. State police said the human head, body parts, and fetus were found along the Lehigh River in Whitehaven near here. The suitcases were apparently thrown from a bridge to the highway 300 feet below. They said the suitcases sprung open upon impact. A passing motorist found the suitcases and notified authorities. I think it was actually a kid as well who found it, but I think they were just, I don't know if they were protecting or it was a motorist and then the kid got out, blah, 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 blah. The bodies were taken to Canadian Houghton Hospital in Lehighton. State police said it was hoped the woman could be identified following an examination of dental charts and fingerprints. Well, that didn't happen either. That was 1976, and her name is Beth Doe. That's what they call her. Yeah. Carbon County officials used fingerprints and dental charts Tuesday in an attempt to identify the dismembered body of a woman that had been found on Interstate 80 near the borough of Eastside. State police said the body was discovered Monday in 3 suitcases that had been dropped from an overpass onto the highway 300 feet below, and an unborn fetus was also found in the suitcases, police said. State police said pathologists and other officials of the Carbon County Coroner's Office examined the bodies Tuesday in an attempt to determine clues as to their identity and what happened. Police said the human head, body parts, and fetus were found along the Lehigh River in Whitehaven by a passing motorist who notified authorities. And that's right here. Okay, so this is in Pennsylvania, and let me put that's Lehigh River, Pennsylvania, and I don't know if this is Beck Mountain. It's an area near there, but if you just zoom in right here, and it was crazy because I actually put the pin here because I knew that they were heading west, and I put a pin there, and that's exactly where they put the pin on a map. So right here, the car was driving across the freeway here. Apparently this is 300 feet above the water. And just drove by, stopped the car, probably wasn't construction, and then just threw, probably drove out to here and then threw the luggage over, but instead of going into the water, the luggage landed right here, like on the ground, and it was during the winter and it all busted open. I wonder if there's any winter shots here. That's October. No. Nope. So, all right. These are articles from 1976, right around the time she was found. A dismembered body and fetus, which apparently had been packed in suitcases and tossed off a bridge along Interstate 80, were just discovered Monday by a boy playing in the area, state police said. Well, a minute ago, remember, it was a passing motorist. Trooper Frank Grippy said the body appeared to be that of a woman, but the sex would not be determined officially until an autopsy was performed. The fetus is recognizable, he said. It looks like a female baby. How horrible. Grippy said the body and fetus apparently had been packed in 3 suitcases, which were tossed from the bridge by a motorist near the Carbon County community. Grippy said the suitcases were discovered about 4:30 Monday afternoon by a 14-year-old boy who lives nearby. The impact of the 300-foot fall broke 2 of the suitcases open, and he said, scattering the head, the torso, and the fetus. The 3rd suitcase, which remained intact, contained the arms and legs. I mean, really? Jesus. I think this is a serial killer, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. According to Grippy, the head had medium-length hair. The ears and nose had been cut off. He said there was no identification, but some of the parts had been wrapped in a bedspread, and the torso had been covered with newspaper. All right, so her nose and ears were cut off, and also both breasts were cut off. And see, at that point, that's where you get a serial killer. Okay, and also the nose and ears being cut off. There's no reason to cut off the nose and the ears. There's no, nobody, prints your ear. You don't go to the cop and they go, oh, well, let me get your ear shape. Okay, so the thing is the fact that they cut off the ears and nose, you sort of wonder if they were building something, Almost a little bit like Silence of the Lambs or some shit like that. But, she cut off the nose was cut off, the ears were cut off, and both breasts. Well, if she was still alive, sure, it would be torture, but I think there's more to it than that. Okay. Whoever threw the suitcases probably assumed, okay, let's see. One suitcase landed near the Lehigh River, which runs beneath the bridge, Grippy said. All right, the newspaper was soggy. So the newspaper that some of these body parts were wrapped in was soggy, and we couldn't tell whether it was from Philadelphia or New York, Grippy said. We're drying it out. State police put the parts in plastic bags and took them to the Gnaden-Houghton Memorial Hospital in Lehighton. A nursing supervisor at the hospital said the bodies didn't appear to be badly decomposed. From what I understand, they were freshly thrown, she said. Carbon County Coroner Robert Diebert, who was conducting his own investigation along with the state police, was unavailable for comment. This is just, it's pure insanity, isn't it? Think about that. Let me see, I'm just going to skim through this one. Huh. Wow. The discovery was made by Kenneth Jumper. Now they're even giving the name out. It'd be kind of interesting to look that guy up. Of Whitehaven, Rhode Island, I think is what it says there. But he's got by now, man, if he's 14, he's going to be late 50s. In some brush and at the end of an old access road used by engineers during the construction of the superhighway. The boy, a Weatherly High School freshman, lives nearby on the Tannery Road in Kidler Township, which leads to the Hickory Run State Park. Carbon County Coroner Robert Diebert said last night that the sex of the adult could not be determined because parts of the body were missing. Found at the scene were the victim's head, upper parts of the thigh, and chest. So they kept her, the sexual part of her body, the breasts and, her genitals. Man, this is crazy. Found at the scene were were the victim's head, upper parts of the thighs, and chest cavity, which were contained in one of three suitcases. Authorities located in the area, the parts were wrapped in newspaper, but because of their exposure to the weather, police were unable to immediately identify the publications. The third suitcase, found on some ice along the shoreline of the river, contained the victim's hands and arms and lower legs and feet. So the hands had already been cut off from the arms, or you wouldn't have worded it that way. You wouldn't say hands and arms, right? You'd say their arms, and people would just assume the hands. But you're making a distinction because you're saying that the hands were severed from the arms, and the arms were severed from the bodies, and they were put into that suitcase. The nose and ears had been cut from the victim's head and are among the parts missing from the body, Diebert said. Because authorities were unable to determine the victim's sex, a medical examiner from Philadelphia will be called in to examine the remains today at the Gnaden-Houghton Hospital in Leeton. State police from Fern Ridge, who are conducting the investigation into the killings, have theorized that the 2 suitcases which hit the ground after falling about 300 feet spilled their grisly contents, either broke open on impact or were clawed open by animals in search of food. Following an on-the-scene investigation by authorities, the remains were taken to Gnaden-Houghton Hospital on Diebert ordered for an official examination. Police said they will return to the scene today at 7 a.m. to conduct another search for missing parts of the adult body. Police also reported that there were no identifications of any sort which might lead to the identity of the victim, nor could age be determined. According to young Jumper's father, Kenneth Sr., the area where the body and fetus were found is one of where the boy plays occasionally. The last time he was in the area was December 12th. The father said, in the time there were no signs of the body or fetus. He made the discovery, ran home, and told his father, Richard, 19. Oh, his brother, excuse me. Not father. His brother, Richard, 19. I was going to say, wow, man, he was pretty young having him. He was 5. After going to the scene and observing the situation, Richard returned home and telephoned state police at Troop North, who dispatched officers from that station and from Fern Ridge. And apparently, there's so many different variances of what she looked like. But here's one of them right here. She was found along the bank of Lehigh River. A teenage boy was playing. We know that part. The victim is a white female, but they draw it. It looks like she's almost Native American or Hispanic, right? So when they say a white female estimated to be 17 to 21, the victim was approximately 5'2", with medium brown hair, 2 small circular birthmarks on her face. The victim had a visible fracture on a front tooth. Okay, so there's that one, and let's see what this one is here. I don't really have the date on this one. Okay, this is a year later. A year and a day after the start of Carbon County's most bizarre murder case, investigators have unearthed little more than one new clue: the origin of the newspaper. So now this is an article that says that they know where the newspaper came from. Remember how they couldn't identify it because it was too wet? Investigators have unearthed little more than one clue: the origin of the newspaper in which was wrapped parts of an unidentified dismembered female and fetus. Carbon County District Attorney Richard W. Webb said last night the body of the female, believed to be in her 20s, is still refrigerated in the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's office, but will begin this week to seek burial of the remains. As far as investigators can determine, this is what happened. On Sunday, December 19th, 1976, a 5'4", 150-pound pregnant woman was strangled and dismembered by an unknown assailant. The murderer put body parts and female fetus in 3 cheap, partially spray-painted suitcases. Well, that's weird too, right? Like, why were you spray-painting the suitcase? He wrapped some parts in a chenille bedspread, or chenille, Chenille bedspread, and a September 26, 1976 issue of the New York Sunday News. Yeah, so the newspaper was 3 months prior to her. I mean, you know, back then people would just stack up their newspapers and use them for fire and things like that. And now nobody really even gets a newspaper anymore. Does anybody even get that? I haven't seen a newspaper delivered in a long time. Yeah. Sometime later, the suitcases were tossed from a westbound bridge of Interstate Route 80. The suitcases never made it to the river. The grisly discovery of the remains was made by 14-year-old Kenneth Jumper at around 4:30 on December 20th. A pickup truck served as the unknown woman's first hearse. So there you go. Let's do this one now. So this one here is from December 24th, 1976. Let's try this one. Let's do this one first, though. Is there anything new in this one? This is 1976, too. Yeah, whoever threw the suitcase probably assumed he was throwing them in the river. Face was disfigured. According to Grippy, the head had medium-length hair, the ears and nose had been cut off. He said there was no identification, but some of the parts had been wrapped in a bedspread, and the torso had been covered with newspaper. You know, I guess another reason you might cut off the nose and ears is it makes the person absolutely unidentifiable, even if the eyes are there. Somebody who might even know who it was wouldn't know what they're looking at a lot of times. But it seems like there's a little bit something more going on here. State police put the parts in plastic bags and took them to the Nathan Houghton Memorial Hospital. Yep, we saw that. Okay. So that was a little different theorizing on that in that article there. All right. Okay, it says Webb said the victim, this is from December 24th, 1976. Webb said the victim, a Caucasian of possible Mediterranean extraction, was strangled last Sunday. She weighed about 150 pounds and was approximately 5'4". See, both of these cases we've just discussed, the DNA Doe Project could immediately help these ones. Let's see. The autopsy was performed by Dr. Halbert Fillinger. Webb said a dental specialist and a physical anthropologist would be asked to help prepare a drawing of the victim, which would be circulated to police departments in an effort to identify the victim. A 14-year-old boy found the body Monday beneath the bridge. Yep. According to state police, the bodies apparently had been packed into 3 suitcases and tossed off a 300-foot high bridge. You know, it's crazy, though, when you read some of the... I think it's this one, maybe? Let's see. Let me open this up. So this is a week after. On Monday, the state police sent fingerprints from one of the expectant mother's hands to the FBI. And they coupled the few clues they have with an appeal for aid by the nation's police departments and the public. The wooded riverbank near East Side, PA, south of Wilkes Barre, winds far below the bridge, carrying I-80 west towards Sharon, PA. Yeah, it was weird because I had to find the river, and then I found I-90 or I-80, and then I found where they intersected, and that was the spot where the bridge went over the river. Okay, 2 of the suitcases are blue soft vinyl with side zippers. And look at this. They actually have a picture of the damn things. Look at that. These are the 3 suitcases right here. I mean, they touched it up and sort of reconstructed them. But these are the 3 suitcases. This is what it looked like. And that was a pattern inside the suitcases. And there was also this item here. It was like a shawl or something like that, like a little blanket. I'm not sure why they're cutting it like that. Maybe there was blood stains or something on it. All right, so 2 of the suitcases are blue soft vinyl. So maybe I can have that open at the same time. Hey, thanks, Ace B. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so now that those are on the screen, I'll read it at the same time. 2 of the suitcases are blue, soft vinyl, with side zippers, 23 inches times 14 times 7.5 deep. The sides sprayed with black paint and bearing a red, white, and blue stripe on one portion. So why would you spray paint it? What would be the point of that? I mean, even if you're just a regular person, why would you ever spray paint a suitcase like that? The 3rd suitcase is a blue plaid check of the same size, so it must be this one right here, and trim and side zipper. 3 pieces of rust-colored chenille bedspread with embroidered. So that was bedspread, that red thing, not a blanket. Or that, well, I think it was more pink than red. Or what color do you guys think that is? Is that a pink? Almost like salmon pink, kind of. Police believe the young woman in her late teens or early 20s may have been of Spanish or Italian percentage. See? Well, there again, I mean, send her DNA to Parabon and do the snapshot. But I would just skip snapshot. But here's what Parabon needs to have is a sort of snapshot light that you add to your genealogy research. So instead of 3,000 for the genealogy, you get for 3,500, they'll just tell you the origins. You don't need to get the eye color and all that other stuff. Okay? It really doesn't. That's irrelevant. Once you decide to go with genetic genealogy, all the other stuff's almost unimportant at that point. She was 5 foot 4 inches tall, had brown eyes, dark brown shoulder-length hair, and weighed 150 pounds. You know, one of these articles said, like a day later, the medical examiner has determined this to be a homicide. It's like, really? Why did it take you 2 days to decide that? You could have walked right up to the scene and said, yep, this is a homicide. Thank you. Because, you know, most people don't jump, you know, while they're in midair, slice themselves up and fall into 3 suitcases. And then on the way down, both your ears get sliced off and your nose and, you know, your head in a different one. I know it's possible, sure, okay? But it's not really common. Yeah, so I'm glad you were able to determine it was a homicide at some point. Well, Gray, maybe it was an accident, and the guy actually saw the body and cut it up into 3 different parts and put him into 3 suitcases and then flung him off a bridge. And yes, if you believe that, I have swampland to sell you. I don't know. Doesn't seem like a mafia type anything to me. Here's one of the things that's weird is I guess she was, later on, they determined she was sexually assaulted. Let me see if I can find... Reddit actually had a good post on it, believe it or not. And there was a number written on her hand, I believe. So we'll have to get to that in a minute. I'm just trying to find the article. Hold on a second. Can't find it right this second, but okay, this is it. Yeah, and this matched up to other things I was reading too. But here you go. The cause of death was determined. This is by I don't know if this is a username, but unresolved crime, whatever. Or maybe that's just the tag. I don't know who put this up here. But the cause of death was determined to be strangulation, although she also sustained a gunshot wound through her neck. Beth Doe showed signs of being sexually assaulted post-mortem. So that's why you put all this together and you got a serial killer here. I mean, she's 9 months pregnant. The guy knows she's pregnant, but he doesn't care. There's signs that she was sexually assaulted and probably first strangled, but then to make sure she was shot, okay? And you gotta admit, have you ever heard of a sicker, this is one of the sickest cases I've ever heard. And I'd never even heard of it till today. Beth Doe showed signs of being sexually assaulted post-mortem. Her daughter the daughter, the 9-month-old fetus, but I'm glad that they refer to it as a daughter, because at that age, you're actually not a fetus anymore. Her daughter was showed to be in the 9th month of gestation. The dismemberment was done with a finely serrated tool. Investigators were quoted saying he knew what he was doing in reference to the killer's precise and clean incisions. Beth Doe's torso was cut into 2 pieces. Beth Doe's nose and breasts were severed. I think they meant ears here. It said nose, ears, and that should have been ears. They were not recovered at the scene. So that's another thing too, right? The nose and ears and breasts were not recovered. So that means whoever did this kept those things, probably as a trophy, right? And you're also missing her genitals, or they would have been able to determine that it was a female early on. Some of her body parts were wrapped in chenille bedspread, and some were wrapped in newspaper. The newspaper was determined to be 6 sections of the New York Sunday News, dated September 26, 1976. Also found in the suitcases were straw and dry packing foam. There were letters. See, this is kind of weird right here, right? There were letters and numbers written on the palm of the left hand in ink. The color was not determined. The letters were determined to have been WSR followed by a 4 or a 5. Below that and to the right were either the numbers 4 or 7. So you'd think something like that might lead to something. Did she write it on her hand, or did that guy write it? The killer. And yes, when I say guy, it's 99.999% going to be a guy that would do something like that. So I guess what they're saying is, okay, so you have WSR, and then maybe it says 4 or 5, and then below, and then just a little bit to the right, were either the numbers 4 or a 7. Weird. Yeah, they definitely need to be solved. Yeah, but it's also the 4 and the 7 are down and to the right, or the 7. It's WSR. I'm not sure why you just typed that in, but yeah, I just said the same thing, yeah. The WSR is either a 4 or a 5. I don't know how a 4 could possibly look like a 5, but I know how a 4 and a 7 might look like that because of the way you would. Some people do the, the German 7, and then it looks like a 4. Samples of Beth Doe's tooth enamel, hair, and bone was sent to the University of South Florida for isotope analysis. The results show that Beth Doe moved to the United States from Europe, possible Czech or Mediterranean, Polish, or Jewish origin, as a child or teen. It is suggested that she lived in the States for approximately 5 to 10 years before she was killed. She was suggested to have been residing in the southeast United States, likely in eastern Tennessee. That's amazing, that isotope stuff, where they can actually, you live in an area, you eat the food there, and then the isotopes that are specific to an area. I mean, it's way above my pay grade, or whatever the hell you want to call it, but you can actually tell where you lived and when you lived there, because I guess if you live in another area, it would change it a little bit, but you'd still have the remnants from where you were before, I guess. I don't know. It is suggested that she lived in the States for approximately 5 to 10 years before she was killed. She was suggested to have been residing in the southeast United States, likely in eastern Tennessee. Wow, I mean, to have it that specific like that. Yeah, so way over here, right? Yeah, it's probably over 500 miles driving. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, see, look at this is the map right there. I was kind of like, oh, I got lucky, and I put the pin almost exactly where that is. See. See right there. I just put my pin there, and then based on kind of a description, and there it is. There's the bridge, and right there. Yeah, so basically that's about it for the information, but I mean there might be some more deep in some Reddit page somewhere, but I'm just going by the summary here. I mean, that is just absolutely bizarre. You have 2 cases. One of them has her hands cut off and teeth pulled out, and they're only about 300 miles apart, actually, and about a year and a half in time difference. Or maybe 2.5. Well, let's see, 74 June. Yeah, almost 2.5 years. I'm not saying they're related. I just found it strange. You have dismemberment, which isn't really that common. I mean, it's common to true crime people because you hear it all the time, but it's really not that common, especially maybe back in the 70s like that. Yeah, I saw that at the top, yeah. I read that. Unresolved. Well, it says right here, it says unresolved crime. I don't know if that's a... And then up here... Oh, this is posted by somebody named Exquisite Antiquity. All right, so there you go. And it was put there only 7 months ago, so it's pretty recent. Hey, thanks, Lanky Tor. I appreciate it. I was wondering if people were like, God, this blows. Radioactive isotopes can be measured
We
in teeth and
appreciate
bone
everyone
and
here so much.
can pinpoint
Love
where
you,
you
freaks.
live.
Face blowing a
almost
kiss.
Anywhere in the country. Probably anywhere in the world, I would imagine. Not just the country. Yeah, I like going over these. I like going and finding the old newspaper articles from the time. And I find that the information given out in these older cases is much more detailed than the news you get now. I mean, look at that detail. There's no way they would tell you that, oh, there was 3 suitcases, there was a head in one, and then this one, that, and the other. You know, they don't tell you that stuff anymore. They just said, oh, yeah, it was grisly. Yeah, it was much more transparent. That's a good word. But I think that they didn't realize the, quote, importance of keeping crime scene details from the, you know, because only the killer would know that there was 3 suitcases, and the people that found them, that there was 3 suitcases, and then which body parts were in which one, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, anyways, I got the phone lines open if you want to talk about these 2 cases. I don't want to talk about other cases, all right? At this point. But if you want to talk about these 2, any thoughts you might have, that'd be cool. If not, we'll just make it a shorter night. I guess this is what it looks like underneath there, but it, keep in mind this is recent. I don't even know if they're on the right side of the bridge based on, I can't tell, but that's what it looks like underneath. So I guess if that path is right there, see, I actually think they're on the wrong side in those photographs, because here there's like a little park you can pull up to, and it looks like you can even park right there and walk down. Yeah, see right there? See this little trail, right there, it kind of goes underneath the trees right there. I'm almost positive that that's what you're seeing in this shot right there. Just back up a little bit. And so because of that, that makes me believe they're on the wrong side of the river. So basically, they're over here photographing a cross. It's over there. Hey, thanks, Tate. Yes, don't forget to hit that like button, everybody. Even though the subject matter isn't really like, yay, let's like it, but it's really just the concept of the video. All right, having a show. So here we go. Hit the like button, 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 30, 25, 30. You want to put 30, sir, 25 of them, you're out. I'm 25, 30, 30. There you go. Got it. Lady of the Dunes and Beth Doe. Man, are you guys that lame that you don't want to call in on a show? Like, you have so much to say in the chat, but you can't call up the phone and talk about those things. You know? It's not like I'm mean to the callers or something. God, come on, guys. Yep, I'm just sitting here, dead quiet, waiting for a call. Other than that, I'm going to not say a word. You're confused at where the numbers are? Well, maybe check the top of the screen. That's what they all say, Dot. That's what they all say. Thanks, Crystal, a.k.a. Beaver Gaming sub, Crystal. Yeah, thanks. Crystal, I do. Takes a long time to get all that stuff. Hours. And if you ask, can I call, I'm not going to answer the question, all right?
Gray, you really work hard on these. Thanks.
True, Crystal, a.k.a. Beaver Gaming sub, Crystal. Hey, in Delusional Lucidity, in an attempt to type in boom, typed in Banaum. Or Beninum. There you go. Ah, boy. Why are people asking, can I call? I said, I'm waiting for people to call in. Assume that means that anybody can call in now. That's what it means. All right. Hey, thanks, Cairo. Yeah, Cairo had a bee scare today. He stirred up a wasp's nest and then had to sort of run away from it as fast as he could, and then tried to negotiate how to get back down to where he was to get the tools. Hey, thanks, Steve Jones. All right, 916, you're on the air.
Hi, Gray. This is Shauna.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
What's up?
Pretty good. Not much. Well, I was listening to your Pennsylvania, and like my heart is racing because my mom had an experience on that highway.
Oh, yeah?
That you were describing.
I want to call, but Higginsville, Missouri.
Hey, can you hold on one second? Because
no service, one
just
bar Wi-Fi.
a second.
I have inputs on both cases. Honeybee, 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 honeybee.
Okay, all right, go ahead. There was somebody, Cairo donated, and it was speaking over your voice. So I wanted them to hear what you had to say.
Oh.
All right, so go ahead.
Well, thank you, Cairo.
Yeah.
So, like growing up, my mom would tell us these stories about never hitchhiking. My mom loved to go dancing in Western Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And they'd drive all over, and obviously they'd be drinking and out until 3, and it was just a different time. They weren't doing drugs, they were just out partying, basically. And they met up with some guys at the bar, and I think this was in Western Pennsylvania, like a little bit south of Pittsburgh. And the, people used to accept rides home from each other in the 70s after they'd spent a long time together, and it just wasn't as taboo as it is now to accept a ride home from someone.
Yeah, people always hitchhiked back then. So, well, anyway, just what's the actual story part?
Yeah, I just I don't want people to think my mom is crazy.
Well, nobody, but back in the 70s, everybody hitchhiked all the time. That's just kind of how it was.
I'm not sure if everyone knows that, but so anyway, my mom accepted this ride from two guys, and they drove her all the way down the Pennsylvania Turnpike and told her, that they were going to kill her and what they were going to do to her. And this was in the 70s. They were going to dismember her and all of that, and they were going through her stuff, and her ID had her name on it, and her name was a well-known name in Western Pennsylvania because her father was a police chief. And they dropped her off super hastily, and she had to walk 40 miles in the woods of Pennsylvania home. I mean, she got a ride part of the way, but she didn't want to accept a ride from someone that wasn't a female because it was obviously really scary.
Wow, that's crazy.
It sounds, everything you said just made me think back to that, because I'm going to let you talk now.
Well, no, it sounds kind of similar, but at the same time, it's, I don't think it's this, they might have just been trying to scare her, and then when they realize, oh my God, look at it's the police chief. Oh, let's forget the jokes. Now get the hell out of here. I mean, serial killers wouldn't care. A serial killer type. I think the guy that killed Beth Doe is to me, it seems like a serial killer because of the crazy stuff all of the stuff. It wasn't like they were just trying to hide. You're raping a 9-month pregnant person. You strangle, shoot her. You cut off her ears, nose, and breasts, and you can't find those three things. Cut up off the head. You cut off the arm, the hands, torsos. Put them all in the different suitcases and throw them off the bridge. Yeah, that doesn't sound like even something a normal rapist would do, trying to hide something. Yeah.
And the painting of the suitcases, so no one would recognize them. I don't get that.
Yeah, but who's out there going, ooh, well, wow, that looks like so and so's suitcase. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, it's just that's almost paranoid at that point. Unless it's maybe my girlfriend is missing 3 suitcases that look just like this, but if I get rid of, spray paint on there, it won't look like. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The spray paint.
And plus, there'd be a correlation between 3 missing suitcases and 3 missing suitcases at the end of a ravine, right? I'm missing 3 suitcases, and then they found them below the freeway, right? So painting them would be really futile,
Yeah, or he's just. But it was like he was trying to make them so they weren't recognizable or something. I don't know why he thought that was important, but who knows?
Yeah. And adding them with the hands.
A 14-year-old kid found the bodies. Mallory, somebody that just lives in that area. No, the killer is not the person who found the bodies. They were thrown off the bridge, and the suitcases split open. Okay.
Certainly, yeah. It was there because we've heard about this story, but I didn't link up the timeline, right? Because I'm not studying this all day. There's tons of these type of cases. It's just, you don't necessarily pick up on the sequencing of it. And when I looked it up, I was like, this is exactly the same era that happened to my mom.
Yeah.
And she's fine. She's very paranoid and doesn't trust anybody, but as a result of that, but she I mean, she's fine. She got married and everything and had a normal life, but this goes to show how small the world is.
It's crazy.
And there was another one along that interstate, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't there?
I don't know. I've heard of like I-80 or something like that, but I got another caller calling in. I don't want to go off onto another case. But,
yeah. No.
But it's interesting. Gotta hope that'd be crazy if that was the same person. I'll tell you that.
It was two guys.
Yeah, two guys. Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes me think it's not related. But
well, I just think it's not related because they let him go, and it doesn't. There's a lot of people that would say stuff like, maybe they were aware of what happened and knew people would be scared about that, and were trying to, two kids kind of trying to freak out a hitchhiker.
They were really aware of her dad standing in the police.
Right, but that might have been why they called off their prank. I mean, I'm just saying. I think that's almost as way more likely. Actually, is that they were picked up a hitchhiker, and they were trying to, hey, let's pretend that we're goofing around, and then when they saw, oh my God, her dad's a police chief. Oh, forget this, drop her off. They were just going to goof around. I don't know.
I hope that that's the case, Gray. I really do. I really hope. That's not good either.
Because I think a serial killer would have kept going. So. I think a serial killer would have killed, if they were a serial killer tandem or something, and they wanted to do that, they would have done it anyways, and then try to have that as a badge of honor. Oh, we were even able to do that to the police chief's, daughter. They would have made it sort of interesting.
That's a good point, Gray.
That's what I think. But anyways, all right. Well, thanks, Jonna, for calling in.
Your opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, you were the first caller.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks. Okay. Have a good one.
Have a great night.
All right.
Bye, Chatter.
All right. Bye. All right. 270.
Hello.
Yeah, 270. You're on the air. Yep.
Oh, hi. I was just fiddling around trying to figure out how to call.
Well, who is this?
I'm nervous. My name is Mallory. You called me Mallory.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, Mallory. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Mallory. Hey. Yeah, okay. Mallory.
I just turned 21 2 days ago, and I was just trying to figure out what information was most important for figuring out who killed this person. So I was just thinking, they left a lot of clues that were really unusual. If we could just figure out how to put them together,
I think what's crazy about the case, not only it's weird that they're not solved. I mean, something so heinous like that, but you don't even know who the freaking victim is in either of them. See, that's bothersome. It's just like you're not even ready. You can't even do any investigation. Like, how do you even find at all who the killer is at this point without even knowing who the hell was even killed? So they still got, I mean, it's been how many years now? 45 years or some crap like that they haven't even been able to identify who the victims are. So
I'm wondering what on earth did they not take DNA? Who doesn't report a missing person? How have they not connected possible people with who was killed?
Well, I'm finding
that person from out of state.
Well, I'm finding it to be kind of more common that I'm comfortable with humanity. It's really disappointing. I mean, the DNA Doe Project, almost every one of their cases is just like that. Nobody reported them missing. They go, oh, wow, so they were dead all those years? I mean, really? I mean, why you didn't hear from somebody for 20 years. You'd think you'd put it into the system just in case it's like this. You didn't do that, though. You guys were just, God, I don't know, man. It makes me sad for humanity.
Well, that's really suspicious because we have all these people who call in somebody missing and nobody takes them serious. And then you got these people who don't even call their people in missing when they're dead.
Well, it doesn't mean, I don't think it's suspicious. I think it's more like they just...
A runaway or whatever.
Yeah, they just don't give a shit. You have one of those kids that... they've already left the home at 16 and they're running around and they just lose track of them. The parents give up on them and nobody reports them missing. It doesn't. I don't get a suspicious vibe out it. I mean, it happens so much that it's just these. A lot of people that become like prostitutes and so forth, when they go missing, the family might not even report them missing because they don't even know that. They don't know what they're doing. They could be anywhere at that point. They could have traveled to some other state, and they don't even know if they're missing. And then time goes by, and eventually they just said, forget it. Maybe she'll show up someday. And they'd rather not know too, right? Like as soon as you report somebody missing, there's sort of this weird finality, I would imagine, that comes to it. You're now admitting that something could be wrong, where if you just sort of don't report and you just maybe they'll show up someday. Mentally, you can allow.
That's funny.
You can allow yourself.
Mother, though.
I think you can allow yourself to feel like, hey, maybe they're still out there. But as soon as you report and the police start looking around, they can't find, and now you're getting some finality going.
Well, I guess I'm just used to like my mom. If I was missing, she would be reporting me immediately. Like.
Yeah.
A normal mother would go and want to know where exactly her kid is and where they went and why.
I think that's what normal people.
Reported.
That's what normal parents do. Like normal, right. Normally people are reported missing. See, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of missing people, and most of them are reported missing. But then there's ones that aren't even reported missing at all, and then a lot of those end up being the ones, since they're already in a dangerous situation of life and they get killed, there's absolutely no way to find out even who these people are a lot of times. It's bizarre.
Well, now the question.
I think it's just bizarre.
Oh, now it's...
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, the question is, was this calculated or did the dude just get lucky that he picked a chick that was not called in as missing?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Well, the first case,
also,
maybe it seemed like that person in the first case, I think, knew that they took their hands because they probably knew that they were already had their fingerprints taken by police at some point. This one, the second one, to me, it just seems so... They absolutely, they're just barbarians. I don't even know what the rhyme or reason to it was. They just it seems like a serial killer. You cut off the boobs, ears, nose, keep those items. There's no report of genitals. They weren't able to determine the sex for a while, and they never found those parts, I don't think. And so, maybe the person took the genitals, breasts, ears.
I mean, there's not much of genitals you can take from a girl, though.
Well, I mean, but you can cut out that part. You see the whole waist area there.
That is insane.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
Who dumps a body in suitcases? This was not very well planned out. Or else the body would never be found.
Well, if you watch the show, lately that seems like that's sort of in vogue. The whole suitcase thing. It's like a lot of bodies are being dumped in suitcases. But yeah, I mean...
He must have got that off TV or something then, because realistically, if he didn't want to be caught, he would have done better. If I killed somebody, I would not be dumping them in a suitcase.
Well, he tried to dump them into the river, but they hit the bank. So that's the part where he messed up. If he hit the river, they would have, drifted way downstream, and who knows where anybody would have found anything,
So there was a string of mistakes that led up to the finding of this body.
Yeah, I mean, basically he just threw them over the side there, and as a kid, you can just walk right down there. It's right just under the bridge, and they're just sitting there, the body parts.
I do that all the time too. So yeah, that'd be very possible to find a body just like that.
Imagine being the kid finding the head on the ground. Really, man.
Oh my gosh.
A 14-year-old kid.
That kid probably had to go to counseling.
Yeah, he's probably a psychologist today, because all the crazy people
I would hope so.
they all become psychologists, right? The crazy people. Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of things that make this case strange that we could like focus on, but I'm not sure exactly where it's trying to lead us. Like, he didn't do a very good job at hiding the bodies. It says something. I don't know if that means he's not experienced or if he's just an experienced serial killer. Makes me wonder.
I'm trying to figure out what the purpose. See, what's weird to me is, okay, I get the whole trophy angle, you know, the nose, ears, you know, I guess apparently, you know, genitals or whatever, you know, some psycho, right? But then you cut up the arms and the hands and you put those in. Why did you need to cut up the arms and the hands? Why did you have to cut the arms and the hands off of the body to take the breast? Oh, and the breasts. I forgot the breast. So the breast, nose, ears, and genitals area. The genital area. Well, if they're
removed, where did he put them?
Well, yeah. So he put those.
If he did
somewhere.
All that trouble, if he could do all that trouble, why didn't he just dispose of the bodies like better than that? Like, could have burnt them or something. If he's gonna cut them up, you might as well, you know.
Yeah.
Do something better than shoving it in a suitcase and throwing it off a bridge.
Well, yeah, I mean, that part's dumb, saying. But he doesn't seem like he cared that much anyways, right? So you throw him over, even in the river, they'd float downstream and somebody would find him in a little bit of time anyways. Oh, wow, look there's a suitcase. You're out there fishing or something. What's in the suitcase? Oh, my God, it's a head. You know, maybe he didn't mean to have him found in 2 minutes, but why would anybody discard a body that way ever at all if you're trying to get away with it? You would just drive here's what I know for sure, is that person could have driven those 3 suitcases in the middle of absolutely nowhere, dug 5-foot deep holes, filled it in, covered them up with pine needles or something, and that would just be a person who disappeared from the face of the earth and never seen again. Because not only nobody even knows who they are now, they wouldn't have a clue that she was even missing back then. I mean, imagine that. Like, so he kind of a lot of these guys want you to find something. Maybe they want to delay you finding it a little bit. You remember the one in Hawaii? That person, apparently, they believe that the serial killer, he actually called the police and took him out there and was like, hey, did you guys look over here? You know, because that one wasn't found quick enough. You know, he needed to get the information out there. He wanted to read the articles and get excited in the paper. You know, so there you go.
Either this guy was really not that smart or he wanted them to be found, which I find it hard to believe he wanted them to be found.
No, I don't. See, that's what serial killers do, though, see? If you believe he's a serial killer, like I do, then that's what they do.
He must have been competent.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he's doing.
He did not want to get caught.
Look how well it worked. I mean, my God.
Right.
He knew exactly what he was doing. And so it was found, and you're looking at 45 years later, and nobody even knows who she was. Still. I mean, so it's like, that's crazy. Yeah, so
imagine going in your grandpa's attic and finding like a jar with some ears and a nose in it. Like, that'd be so insane. What happened to the ears and the nose?
Little jars of formaldehyde filled with some crazy items. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of get.
It just blows my mind.
I get this little eerie thing that he was building. Like, I know it's because I've seen Silence of the Lambs, but you know, you take the ears, the nose, and the breasts, and you're sort of putting together your perfect person, or like this weird body outfit made up of different parts from different people, right? So, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, why else would you? I don't understand why you'd cut those parts off. What do you do with it? So, anyways, I got another caller calling in, but.
Oh, do you? All right, well, go ahead and take them on.
But hey,
thanks for talking to me. This is my first time I've ever called anywhere, so I'm nervous, but I appreciate it.
No, you did great. And it's Mallory.
Thank you.
Mallory. Hey, Mallory.
You got it right.
Mallory. All right.
Mallory.
All right. I'll admit that was stupid.
Alligator.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for calling me. Bye.
I'll be watching you. See you. Bye.
All right, bye. Yeah. And that was Mallory, everybody. Mallory on the call there. All right. All right. 3, 2, 1, you're on the air.
Hi, Gray. My name's Christina. I'm Rad Chick in chat. First-time caller. I've been listening to you since the Molly Tibbetts case.
Oh, yeah? Molly Tibbetts.
And I've been following ever since. I'm a radiation researcher with some true crime on the side.
Oh, cool.
And I grew up in Mount Clemens, Michigan during the Oakland County child killer case. I was 7 when that was going on. And, they never found that guy or those guys. But one of the victims in the case, one of the girls, ended up being my speech teacher in college. And it was kind of a weird, serendipitous occurrence to have, like, the parent of one of the victims as your teacher. Because I felt, like, so terrible for him. And he was, like, such a wonderful man, but you could see, like, just, this underlying, like, despair still, like, 30 or 25 years later, still in his personality. And I think they had two men, one that was in prison and one that had passed away, and they had found some necklaces that they thought might have belonged to the victims, but I don't think they ever established whether those were the actual killers of the children. But when I was growing up during that time, they knew the killer drove like a purple Pinto. And so I remember my parents telling me, if you see a purple Pinto when you're walking home from school, run to the nearest neighbor's
purple
house.
Pinto? Man, I thought all Pintos were lime green. I can't believe that. So they actually
lime green. I've been scared of Pintos ever since.
I mean, they're almost
I have
all
Pinto PTSD.
Yeah.
Growing up.
Well, I think people should get PTSD just looking at a Pinto. I mean, it doesn't even matter if they're associated with anything, but just the car itself is so just, oh, God. Yeah,
I know, it's kind of like half UFO, half car.
Yeah, it's just
the way it looked. And every once in a while, they'll drag one out of a canal up there in Michigan. I live in Florida now. And, I'll hear about, they'll drag a Pinto out of a canal and they'll say maybe this is, one that belonged to the killer, and they'll go through it. But, it's always a dead end.
What do you think about these?
What do you think every few years? And,
well, hold on. But what do you think about the cases we're talking about here tonight? What do you think about these?
Well, they're extremely disturbing.
Yeah.
Just very, very disturbing. And I thought it was interesting that the first case you talked about, even though there's no family connection or family that's come forward, they've exhumed the body on 3 separate occasions. So, I mean, they really, really want to solve this case.
It's pretty neat, isn't it? It's like,
I'm glad that they're putting so much effort into it. And it gives me confidence that eventually they will, because there's so many, like, rapidly developing, things in the field of forensics. Just like with the CT technology that they did on the last attempt, I think with the skull, they did some kind of advanced computer tomography to rebuild the face, and that was like a new technology. So, the field of like criminal forensics is advancing all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So, I think the FBI has a ton of stuff that they're not really telling people that they have, because like lately there's these weird moments where they go, well, the FBI's in there. Oh yeah, they know that. I mean, they're whatever it is they're doing, like for tracking people. I know it's probably cell phone and other stuff, but it's pretty weird. Like they used to not be able to do what they're doing now. They're doing something a little different now. But I did call the. I mean, I'm sure they've thought of it because now everybody's talking about it. But I called the. I think it's called Cape in or Cape in Islands or something like that. Prosecutor office, I guess that's who it's through. And then I said, hey, and then they sent me to the medical examiner office, and then I was talking to her about, or I left her a message actually of doing, using the DNA Doe Project, because these are just absolutely perfect for this. You've already exhumed it for DNA in 2013. You might even have what you need just from that one, but if not, you might have to do a fourth. You take one of the molars, extract DNA from it, and the DNA Doe Project can do miracles with that stuff, really. So.
Yeah, and you had mentioned also the isotope analysis that they did on the second body, and they had determined that the person had grown up in East Tennessee, and that was because of the Oak Ridge nuclear lab that had been there since World War II. It was one of the labs, and there were like 20 different places throughout the country that helped develop the bombs that were dropped on Japan. In fact, if it's past midnight, today is like the anniversary of Hiroshima. Everybody involved in that project, it was really compartmentalized. Like nobody knew what they were working on. Like one developed the triggers, and so all of the scientists involved, nobody really knew what they were building, except for Robert J. Oppenheimer. And in Oak Ridge, that place, they were developing the nuclear material. So that's why people in that area, it leaked into groundwater.
Well, why don't you explain? How about maybe you can explain how this would work, the isotope thing? Do you know how to? Can you explain that with your what you do, or because I really kind of don't. I mean, why does it matter that there's a nuclear plant? I mean, because it doesn't couldn't you? Because if you live in a state that doesn't have nuclear plants, you still do isotope testing, right?
Yeah, well, any place that has like a nuclear plant, there's emissions that are from the plants all the time, and the venting that cools the fuel. Mm-hmm. And there's steam that comes out of like the cooling towers, and there's a very, very tiny amounts of what's called tritium and different things that get released into the environment. And each one of those plants uses some of them use different formulations of fuel. And there was something called the Baby Tooth Project that was done in the 80s. They started after Chernobyl happened to see how it was nuke plants were affecting children all throughout the United States, and they had people send baby teeth, their children's baby teeth in from all around the country, and they tested the baby teeth of all of these kids, and they found out levels of strontium and tritium and Florida.
Well, hold on, before you get too deep into I think for tonight's show, if you can explain how they're doing these, and I gotta take. I'm gonna let you sort of just talk. I'll listen to it, but I gotta walk into the bathroom for a minute. Okay, but just try to explain to people and pretend you're talking to somebody who's about 18, you're in high school trying to, because the thing is I that's how you have to sort of start, and then maybe I could get more into it. But when you start getting really technical right off the get-go, only a few people, I believe, because it's so scientific, would get that. I mean, I'm not for, when you do these shows on TV and people go, oh, well, can you dumb it down for people? They're doing that on stuff that's not even smart to begin with. See, this whole thing here is it's a little outside of my comfort zone for sure. So if you could explain it in a way that, even an idiot can understand, I'd appreciate it. I'll be the idiot.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So,
well, there's nuclear materials that exist in the ground, from where you live. There's uranium in the ground that occurs naturally in places like California, because there's a lot of volcanoes out west. There's nuclear materials that exist in the ground because of nuke plants that are really old and they've leaked into the groundwater. And then there's nuclear materials that come from plants that are steaming. And when you go and you get a glass of water from the sink and you drink it, you're taking those materials into your body, and they're in really, really, really tiny amounts, but they build up over time. And in a kid, as they're growing up, it accumulates in the bone and in the teeth. And so, like when a kid loses a baby tooth, a scientist can take the baby tooth and they can analyze it with a really super expensive microscope that looks for radioactive material, and they can tell exactly where that radioactive material came from. So that's how they can narrow down like where that kid grew up. And I was just kind of curious why they didn't do that for the Lady of the Dunes in Cape Cod when they did do it for the body that they found and determined that was, I don't recall where the body was found, just that they grew up in Tennessee. But they could also do that type of analysis for the body that was found in the dunes in
that's
Cape
so
Cod.
Cool. Hey, let me ask you this. So do they keep like a database of the isotope specific levels and whatever else they might measure for different areas, and that's how they're able to do it? So like they go to Portland, Oregon, they say, oh, okay, the isotope levels here are this. Let's keep those stored. Out in Salem, Oregon, it's like this, blah, 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 and it's really different all around the country. Forensic pathologists are people who do autopsies. They don't have those kinds of spectrometers, the really expensive microscope that they used to do that as part of autopsies. That used to be standard up until the 70s. They stopped doing it because the equipment got too expensive, and they eliminated that as part of a regular autopsy. But how do they know though? Okay, let's say you find in the middle of Arizona, you find a body, but the body is literally actually from New England. Okay, and they look at the isotopes. How do they know that that's from New England though? So what there must be a chart or something that says, oh yeah, if you get these readings, it's in New England, that area. Like they knew that she was from. They knew she was from East Tennessee, is what I'm saying. Like they knew, like this girl that we're talking about, Beth Doe. They said, oh, she's most likely from East Tennessee. I mean, that's crazy. Like how the hell would you?
Well, because in East Tennessee you have Oak Ridge Nuclear Lab, and they did specific experiments with specific nuclear isotopes. In New England, we have a number of places. One is called Brookhaven Nuclear Lab, which is on, I believe, in Long Island.
Yeah.
And they've done it, and they're still doing to this day specific nuclear testing, although they've toned down the programs that they've done compared to what they were doing in the past because of contamination.
So there is a chart
issues,
right? Like, so you have this microscope or whatever you're talking about, and you get a reading off of it.
Gamma spectrometer.
Okay, so a gamma spectrometer, and you get the reading off of it, and then what do you do next with the reading? There's this little chart that goes. You look through it, and you go, oh wow, that's New England. I mean, is that how it works?
The only people though that really have access to that kind of information would be like the FBI in conjunction with working with the Department of Energy. It's kind of like not something that's like you and I can really access. We
probably don't want to see the levels. We don't want to see the levels that are being pumped out, right? Yeah, so they won't tell us that part.
Or you got to be an activist or who's been in this a long time, and you've got charts that have been sent to you by whistleblowers and things like that. Right. If you've been doing this like 30 years, like where all the bad stuff is hidden, But Yeah, but the FBI, it's kind of like a last resort thing. Like they would do every other thing they could before they resorted to something like that. But that's one way that they could possibly narrow down the lady in the dunes and find out maybe where she's from. There's a whole mix of things that would be found in her skeletal composition, in her bone matrix, if she were like, if she grew up out west, because we did so much bomb testing out around like Las Vegas and Arizona and stuff like that. Like that is a smorgasbord of isotopes that you find in people who grew up in that area, because, we did like thousands of bomb tests out there. So then you get like the gamma spectrometers light up like a Christmas tree with all kinds of stuff if she's from out west.
With an extra eyeball. But you also have like an extra eyeball and maybe a different, like a third arm too, right? Because
yeah, right.
Yeah. So so that might give it away just right away. So let's see.
Well, I wanted to let you know that I really appreciate like how your calm demeanor that you have talking about like, the level of like how disturbing some of these things are. And it's like, it's very upsetting to hear about the Molly Tibbetts thing. It really just wrecked me, that whole case. And you were just one of those, the only like voice of reason to sit down and listen to, like the way that you went through things and went through the street maps, and I so much appreciated that at that time, because that case really bothered me.
Wow.
Before we found out what happened to her, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
I appreciate it. I know
Very
sometimes
much.
I go off on tangents, but that's just kind
Well,
of
you have to, or you go nuts. So
Right,
you
yeah.
you gotta go off once in a while, and
yeah.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
I'll send the check in the mail now. Okay, thanks for. Hey, thanks for the nice
Hit my
comments.
subscribe button.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button. Yay! Yeah, hit her subscribe button. Get in there and say, hey, you're the one that was supposed to be subscribed. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, that was interesting. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain. I think that was a perfect sort of lay person's explanation of, checking somebody's isotopes and figuring out where the hell they live. It's not like a known database. It's some database that it's known by certain agencies, and then if you're a body that's going to be tested, that agency that's testing then sends it to the agency that has the data information that they can then check it off of. And then let me ask this is something that was interesting. How do they know all the different places and which one was first? Like, how do they know that she came from Europe first, then lived in Tennessee? How do they do that part? That's kind of weird.
Because probably Chernobyl.
Well, no, but how would you know which one was first, though? Because you're just reading isotopes, right? So what would make you go, well, they lived there until they were like 10 or 12, then they moved over here and lived in East Tennessee?
Well, the way the bones would grow, because what you have at the end of the bones, like let's say in your wrist, for example, at the end of your bone in your wrist, like or your radius, like from your elbow to your wrist.
Oh, okay.
You have a growth plate, and that continues to grow, and that's how the bone gets longer.
Oh, weird. So can you
grows.
Can you test isotopes in different places and have it be different in a bone? Like, let's say. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they could follow the direction, and they could say, well, at this age, she was exposed to Chernobyl, and because of the level or the amount, because people who were in Europe at that time got heavily dosed, with a certain type of isotopes. And, there's only so many on the periodic table that it could be, and they know exactly now what blew out of Chernobyl in 1986, and they have the approximate age of the victim. So they can work backward in her bone matrix, and they can also use that, as kind of like a age. They know the length of the bone and how tall she was, but they can also look at the bone matrix and say, well, in 1986, she has, this much radiation deposited in her bone matrix.
Yeah, so it is a little bit like Audra was saying, a little bit like tree rings. Each ring has a little
you
different.
Could liken it to tree rings.
Yeah, and each ring has maybe different isotopes from a different part of your, like if there's a growth spurt or something, right?
Yeah, and it would be the same way in teeth if it was a child and the teeth were growing with like tooth enamel. And anyone who wanted to learn more could Google the baby, I think it was called the Tooth Fairy Project radiation study, and it was done by Dr. Ernest Sternglass, who just passed away last year. He was one of the he was actually one of the scientists that worked on the Manhattan project that developed the nuclear bomb, and then he was like, oh my God, we've made the biggest mistake we could have ever made by developing this technology, like a lot of the scientists did that worked on the project, because they didn't know what they were working on initially until it was all put together. And he was the one of the people. Well, he was actually the one who put it together, and they collected the teeth, tens of thousands of teeth from around the country, and studied them and put together this, and then went state by state.
What's kind of freaky is like the bombs that were in Nagasaki, Hiroshima. Those aren't even close to what they have now. I mean, those are like, what are those, 1 megaton, and now they're like 1,000. I mean, they're not even
right. And even more dangerous is like they've developed mini nukes, which are really easily hidden in things, which like regular nukes. Planes could drop, and are easy to sneak into places or be dropped by small planes that can kill 10,000 people, which you don't need a big plane to drop something and kill like 100,000 people. You could have a small plane drop it and drop like, kill an entire, city, or like drop it in the center of, Portland or whatever, and really mess things up. So like mini nukes are really dangerous, and, they test those out in like, what is that testing range that's out in California? It's like in the Mojave Desert, near where they're having all those earthquakes. They test mini nukes
like
out
Los
there
Alamos
all the time.
Or something? Like, isn't there a Los Alamos?
Yeah, and it's not even, it doesn't qualify as like a nuclear bomb because we're not allowed to do above ground testing anymore, but they test mini nukes all the time. And they're small. Like, they're little. Like, you could carry them in your arms practically. Yeah. And so, they've shrunk down this technology now. So, and those are almost like...
Everybody should watch the movie Chernobyl. That's the show, the series.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, God,
I heard it's really
awesome.
great, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an exact
HBO.
Historical... It's based on, there's some things, but most of it's kind of how it was, but like the friendships and things aren't they're the same people, but maybe they weren't buddies like they have them in the movie or the show. But it's really kind of freaky, just people, just basically, just the whole area. You can't live there for, I don't even know how many years. It's like thousands or something.
Hundreds of thousands of years. The fact they're giving tours there is just insane to me.
Well, you got to take your iodine tablet.
I know how dangerous it is.
Yeah, the thing. Oh, you take your iodine tablet. Hey, what was interesting was there was that show called what was it? River Monsters, the fishing show. Where the guy goes around and catches these fish, but he went there.
I love that show.
Like, he went to Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Like, he actually went in there and he took the iodine tablets and he goes in there and he's, catching these ridiculously huge
iodine
fish.
only protects your thyroid. What about the rest of your organs? It's like bullets going
Well,
through
there's a certain amount of time.
Bullets hitting all your organs.
I guess there was just a certain amount of time you could stay and then you had to leave. Some shit like that. but I don't know. I don't think I would ever go there
Is that
to go
does that
fishing.
guy still have a show? Is
Well,
he
I think
okay?
I think, yeah, his show seemed to abruptly end after the Chernobyl trip. It's weird.
I
know?
hope he didn't eat the fish he caught.
Oh yeah, Jesus. Those are some weird looking fish though too, right? With the extra eye on the top. It was amazing. But hell, they were
They're
big.
catching some weird looking fish all over the place right now, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I get pictures sent to me all the time of stuff. But yeah.
Right. Well, hey, listen, but I appreciate you calling in, and I don't think anybody could explain that better. It was good. So it was awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
And you too.
And
You do a great job with
what's your-
some really terrible stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you. What can you say your name again? I'm going to write it down so I can have it.
It's Christina Consolo,
Okay. All right, just want to make sure I have
a
it.
rad chick,
a lot
on
of stuff.
YouTube, and I have
okay.
a WordPress.
Okay, cool. All right.
I'm recovering from brain surgery, so I haven't been very active. But
Wow, I would have
I'll be back.
hated to have you explain that before the surgery. My God.
Yeah.
It already sounded like rocket science, right? Before that, it would have been
Quote of
like
the
we
day.
wouldn't have been able
Fill
to
the
listen.
box with
Okay.
facts, then think outside
Yeah,
of it.
so
I fell and broke my
Ray
neck,
Hughes
and it was
investigates.
a bad situation for a little while. But I'm getting better.
well, good. I'm glad
So-
you're recovering from both of those. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you. I appreciate you calling in. And believe it or not, somebody else called in right on your heels there. So
Okay.
I'll see you in the
have a
chat.
good night.
Yeah, thank you very much. I
All right.
appreciate it. And I'll send you the check later.
Bye-bye.
All right, see you. Everybody. Yeah. All right. 503, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey Gray, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Who's this?
This is Don Spain. Hey,
All right.
I've got so I got some kind of high octane speculation on the Pennsylvania
Yeah.
deal. When you mentioned the suitcases, kind of triggered a memory for me. I'm a musician part time or whatever, but back in the 80s, you know, when we got band equipment, whether we had cables or cords or a PA board, we would get those the hard shell suitcases,
Mm-hmm.
and we would spray paint them and spray paint our band names on them and whatnot. And, you know, I was thinking, what if this guy was a musician getting off a gig, traveling there on the highway, coming home, and saw this gal hitchhiking, you know, and picked
Right.
her up, and then
But wouldn't the
couple
name
days
still be
later,
on there?
He had to spray.
Well, I know what you're saying, but if you
Well,
spray...
no, that's why
okay.
he spray painted the whole thing, right?
Well, it
that
sounded like they
explain why
painted
he
the
spray
side of
painted-
them or something. Didn't they say
Right.
that? Like the
Because, well,
sides? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I thought he said he spray painted the sides of them. It wasn't the whole thing.
Right. Well, right. The sides, you'd have your band name on them so you didn't get mixed up when you're playing at shows, and plus it advertised yourself. So now he's got to spray paint the whole side of it to cover that.
But then it seemed like they could have technique to get rid of the paint to then see what the band name was.
Yeah,
But-
it's possible, but
I mean, I'm just saying. But who knows? God, maybe you're
you
not-
know that's the only that's the only thing I can see why somebody would spray paint. And then think about it: if they popped open, they had to probably been the hard one with the latches, because you know felt or whatever suitcase you'd have them zipped up. I know it's 300 foot or whatever, but still, I don't see those popping open.
Well, they
The
said
zipper
two of
popping
them.
open.
They said two of them broke open. But I mean, if you put like enough weight in there and if they fell 300 feet,
Yeah.
it could. I don't know. You know, but it sounded like
think?
two of them broke open. And maybe, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it does seem a little strange. Like it destroyed them and they popped open just from a 300.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking they were the hard cases, you know, the hard suitcases with the latches on them, but you lock with a key.
Yeah, no, these aren't. I put them on the screen. Did you see those? I got them on the screen, right?
No, I did not. No,
Hold
I
on.
didn't see those. No.
Let me. I don't know if you can see it, but
Yeah, let me.
I'll put them on the screen again. They look like this.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
A little softer kind of thing, you know. They're not really.
Yes, you're right. Okay, yeah, I didn't see that earlier. But still, even yet, you know, people use suitcases for that stuff, and they still spray paint their band names on them.
Yeah, and it's also less likely, though, that they'd break open having this style than the hard ones. I could see that, because then they fall, they hit the right way on the side, and then bang, bust open. Where these are sort of like material that are just zipped up. So it's strange.
Yeah, they're zipped up, so the whole zipper would have had to, Yeah, I don't know, but that's the first thing I thought of is why would somebody spray paint them? And then I thought, well, hell, we always spray painted stuff on ours, you know.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And that
You've just solved a 45-year-old murder. Look under the paint, cops.
Call me Sherlock.
All right. Look under the paint.
Well, I'm here to help.
Yeah, call in there. Tell them. See what they say. Hey, did you guys look under the paint? You know, maybe.
Yeah, no kidding. Maybe they didn't have that technology then. I don't know. Seemed like they could X-ray, right? Like they do with the Leonardo da Vinci paintings.
Yeah, something like
that.
They
could see what was painted underneath them before he painted over them, things like that.
Yeah.
You think they could do that, right?
I think they could now. I wonder if they. I think they said that these are the same suitcases, but they were reconstructed or something. But that's exactly what they look like. I don't know if they went and bought 3 that were exactly the same, or did they basically put it all back together after it broke open or something. I don't know.
So we don't even know those are the actual. We just think that's the.
Well, no, they said, that's what they look like. That's exactly what they look like. It's not like. So I don't care if I'm looking at the exact one. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting, but as long as it's exactly the same type, same brand, everything.
So. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to throw that at you, see what you thought of that.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I didn't. I didn't call you a rodeo clown, so I'm just kidding.
I'm appreciate that, even though I kind of think of myself as one.
Do you have? Wait, you don't have the big
rodeo
red.
Rodeo clowns are pretty fearless, brother.
They are actually.
They save a lot of cowboys.
Yeah. Well, do you have the nose and the hat and the hair that they put underneath it, and the overalls? As long as you got that, okay.
Right.
Yeah, those guys do have a lot of guts with a big smile. Well, the thing is, the smile's actually painted on their face. I wonder what their face would look like if it was actually representing the fear that they might be having when this, 2,000-pound bull is chasing.
That's why they're painted up.
Right. Yay! Look, I'm really happy.
You don't want to see what they're. Right. Yeah, you don't want to see what they're really looking like.
Yeah, there's no way.
That's a fact. Yeah, no, they're crazy. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, don't play the rodeo clown music.
Okay, I'm not doing it. Thanks for calling in. Thanks. All right, bye.
All right, bye.
Hey, that was a good call. Good call there. Fun one. Let's see. And I guess the only rodeo clown music I have is It's Cool music. This one. Right? That's my debunking music. From the green forests of the Pacific Northwest, I bid you all good evening. Or good morning, as the case may be. Wild card lines are open. Wild card. What the hell does that even mean? Like, what in the hell does that even mean on Art Bell's show when he says, wild card line, you're on the air? Like, what does that mean, wild card? Yeah, you can call about anything on this one. Or just from anywhere. If you're east of the Rockies, call on this number. If you're west of the Rockies, call on this number. And if you're south of the Rockies, call this number. And here's the wild card line for the rest of you schmucks. I actually made a Art Bell video. I made a video. Let me see if I can find that one. Oh wait, I don't know if I can play it. Because if I play it, then that music plays again, and then okay. Well, go look it up. I made a tribute video to Art Bell. I just wanted to say what I felt about him. So I bet if you typed in Gray Hughes, Art Bell, you'd see it. I always have jokes. Okay? If you're west of the Marianas Islands, call this number. If you live on Easter Island, call this one. Anyways, you guys, I think that's it for the show tonight. Covered all what I can. Oh, is Blue vaping right now? Man. He very well could be.
Blue is vaping.
Hey, thank you all for calling in. It was some great calls there. Interesting, thought-provoking stuff, you know. And now it's very quiet. It's so quiet, it's almost uncomfortable. What does thank you so much apostrophe mean? Okay, now I gotta go get something to play. Alright, where are we going to tonight? Hope you guys found those stories interesting, by the way. I thought they were... I've never heard of either one of those two. And I thought they were, I mean, just absolute craziness going on. In the 70s, too, right? We went to the Badlands before. I think Cairo had me go there one time. All right. But Billy Boy Blue, Kit Kat, Lanky Tor, Crystal aka Beaver Gaming Sub Crystal, Cairo again, Steve Jones, Cairo again, thank you very much, and Lanky Tor. All right. And like I always say, YouTube doesn't pay anything at all on the videos that I make. So basically, all of the funds that I make on this channel are from the contributions that you guys make. All right. For example, yesterday, I think I got $7 total for the entire, that's $7 in one day from all of the videos that I've ever made on YouTube. Don't you find that a little disturbing? So basically it comes down to you guys. Claudia Neubauer, thank you very much. She always waits right to the end. She always tells me that. I like waiting till the end.
Thank you for being the best channel on YouTube.
Well, you know. Ow, that hurt. That was my Don Knotts sniff right there. Okay, let me get the... See, I like doing the desert rock thing. Is there any place else in the United States that has desert rock? Maybe even in Mexico? Somewhere? It just looks so much better. Every time you fly around in these places like Alaska or whatever, it's flat. The satellite coverage isn't that good. It's not clear. Arches National Park. Did we do that one before? I don't want to do the C one. Sorry. Doesn't sound very fun. They do have Mars, though. Here, hold on. I gotta start over when I'm ready to go here. Catch up, catch up, catch up. Didn't we go to Arches recently? Ah, who cares? It's always so much better. Right there, okay. Emperor Boom. Don't know what that means. Oh, look at that little thing right there. Look at that. I'm gonna go to the beat. Hey, thanks Donna V on Streamlabs. Carol, let's do this first. Gotta give the dancing baby some respect there. Look at that.
Thanks, Gray. Great show.
Thank you. And thanks for everybody for showing up. Oh, he's still flying. Round 2. Ooh, going for a little hole here. Hey, we went through a cave, almost. Good night, Cairo Al-Qadir. Make sure to hit that like button or dislike on the way out the door.
Good night, freaks!
Yes, thank you, Mod Squad. Woo! That was pretty good. Yep, anyways, we're right now looking out into space to the nebulae Xenu Kalakdankulat. Alright? And although I don't know that it exists, but I'm sure with the trillions of nebulae out there, that is one of the names. Alright. Hey everybody, thank you all for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. Sharing in the craziness going on in the world out there. Although that was a long time ago, it's still not solved. Both those cases. Unreal. Crazy times, crazy times. Yes, and thank you all for contributing to the channel and calling in and watching the show, hitting the like button, subscribing, what have you. All right? So thank you very much, and as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.